Hello, good evening, cherished viewers. Welcome once again to the Law Chambers, where we discuss legal matters from the Christian perspective. I am happy to be here today to be your sitting host. As you know, I am Diana Ajapoku, and I hope you learned a thing or two about employment matters last week. Today, we are continuing with again on employment. And I'd like for us to wrap our minds around it a little bit. We've realized earlier this week that all government recruitment and public sector recruitment that took place from November 2024 have been terminated. I would like to ask my panelists before I introduce them. Mr. Emisa, what are your thoughts on it?
Thank you. This is trending news, so I'm sure every Ghanaian has a view on it. But my personal view is, as an employer, you have the right to recruit and you have the right to terminate. And you can do that at any time of your choosing. But then there are processes to go through to make it right. So what is happening is, when you look at the recruitment, as an employer, you have the right to recruit a day to election, a day after election, and all of that. But what is going on is the timing of the recruitment and the type of people that are being recruited, people are crying foul. And I think that borders on discrimination. So then you can make the argument that they are selecting people based on political affiliations. So when you are selecting people based on a criteria that does not apply to everybody the same, it's a form of discrimination. But then I'm not sure of any law that prohibits you from recruiting at any point in time. So from that perspective, I'm looking at it as from an ethical dimension rather than breaching of the law. And then the other side is, once the people have come in, you might think it's wrong, they came in the wrong way, but now they are there. Maybe they have a contract and all of that. So the new person also has the right to terminate. And the right to terminate, in my view, should not be an arbitrary termination. So you have to take them through a process to disengage them. So I am seeing the recruitment itself having some ethical questions to answer, and then the termination to having to the same ethical questions to answer. And this is Ghana, depending on which political side you are. One is right, one is wrong. But I think we have to differentiate between political appointment and regular skilled workers that is merit-based, that does not depend on any political affiliation. So this is an 8-year template that we have in Ghana. Every 8 years, the same thing happens, and we all fight about it. If my relatives get a job in one administration, I'm happy. If my relatives get fired in another administration, I'm not happy. And all of us are like that. So how do we address it? It's a big question for the whole nation.
So, Mr. Emisa, both the appointer in this case, or the employer, and then the terminator in this case, our current sitting government, are all on the wrong side of the law, if I understand what you're saying well.
I want to choose my words carefully, and I said there's a bit of a question mark about ethics, about how it's being done. Because let's say, for you to recruit, I've heard some organizations recruited like 200, 300 people a month to election, and it can happen. That is, if there's a business demand, you've done the analysis and the business. But this is where, when you talk to insiders, there's no business demand for the people. It's just that, hey, let's get our people some jobs. We might or might not be in power. So let's help our people get jobs. So they just compare names. And the discriminatory part is, if you belong to another party, you might not have that opportunity. This is pure party members, so that's discrimination. So if you think it's fair to give people jobs, then let all Ghanaians have equal access. But this is a case where it's selected people who are put there. So is it legal? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's unethical. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emisa. So we would like to go for a short commercial break. We'll be with you soon.
To the one who feels lost. To the achiever still feeling empty. To the perfect life that isn't perfect. To the one carrying heavy burdens. You weren't meant to walk alone. There's a love that changes everything. This is your invitation to experience Jesus. Not religion, not rules, just real love. Your invitation with What Impact 2025 Hope for Today.
Hope Channel is my favorite Christian channel. The best thing about this is that you can have it everywhere you go. All you need to do is to download the Hope Channel app on your Play Store or Apple Store and get all the programs you want to watch.
Welcome back from our commercial break. It is time for us to introduce our guest today, and we deliberately handpicked our guest because of our topic. I am sure you are going to enjoy it as much as I will. For our first guest, we have Dr. George Gashon. Dr. George is the acting Chief Inspector of Factories at the Department of Factories Inspectorate, DFI, of the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations. His office regulates the Occupational Health and Safety Administration's OHSA in Ghana using the Factories, Offices and Shops Acts. He attended the University of Cape Coast for his Bachelor of Science and Philosophy in Chemistry, then MBA Option Project Management, a PhD in Management from Gempa Business School, and finally another PhD in Chemistry from University of Ghana, Legon. He has worked with the Department of Factories Inspectorates for 23 years, having served as a director in 12 regions. Today we are going to learn a lot. Another guest we are privileged to have is Madam Priscilla Opunibaini, a CHRMP and SPHRI, professional in human resource management. She is the head of human resource at Oakwood Green Africa. She is a human resource specialist, a career coach, speaker, trainer, consultant, event manager, and an entrepreneur. How do you manage them all?
God is our help.
Oh, yes, definitely. She's also a chartered human resource practitioner and has a significant number of years of experience in human resource management. And finally, Mr. Kojo Emisa. He is a component learner practitioner with a can-do attitude, indeed, Mr. Emisa, and an enthusiastic and outgoing personality. He works as a management consultant to help individuals and organizations reach peak performance. He is also a certified holder in the SHRMP CSP credential, holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and an MBA in Entrepreneurship. Welcome to our guests, and we hope to have an enjoyable discussion. Before we delve in, what exactly is employment relationship? Let's give our viewers a recap of what we did last week. Yeah.
Well, so I guess the employment relationship exists between when somebody who sets up an entity decides to engage the services of another, okay, and you know, engages the person to work, and then the person gets paid in return for that. So once there is that relationship between the where somebody is engaged to work in exchange for salary, remuneration, whatever you choose to call it, I believe that there's an employment relationship in existence between the two parties.
Okay.
So in simple terms.
Yes. So an employment relationship happens between two parties where you have the employer and the employee in exchange for a consideration. In the context of Ghana, what are some of the pertinent issues that are faced by both employers and employees?
Oh, that's a very big question. The issues are many, I guess. So I guess from the point of view of the employer, most of the time it's productivity, how to get the people you have employed to work for you, you know, to deliver the kind of productivity you are expecting. Mind you, you are paying them in exchange for something. So when they are not working or to deliver that thing that you are paying them for, then definitely there's an issue. So there's the issue of productivity. There's also, I mean, the employer's issues may be many. Macroeconomic issues, issues to deal with the economy. And, you know, because before that relationship exists, because there's going to be an exchange of consideration, the employer should be able to afford, you understand? So if the economy is not providing the factors that would help the employer, you know, to be able to fulfill their part of the bargain, then definitely the employer has an issue. On the side of the employee, most of the time it's remuneration. Okay, sometimes most of the time there's always this banter between the employer and employee. It's always the case of Oliver Twist asking for more, or you know, it could also be any other thing, but there's always that issue of insufficiency of whatever people are being remunerated with. Okay, so that's also an issue. Sometimes employees don't feel heard. Okay, they feel that decisions are taken without their inputs, without their thoughts being sought, and that's an issue. People don't feel like they belong, you know, especially in our country here, or especially in owner-managed institutions, you know, institutions where you have the owner involved in there. Most of the time, there's a lot of arbitrary decisions, and largely employees don't feel heard or listened to or involved. So that's a major issue on the part of employees. Sometimes people feel that they are doing things that either they don't love, okay, I think it boils down to the economy. Sometimes people take jobs not because they want to, because they really need to make ends meet, so they take these positions. So those are some of the issues. It's many, okay, but I mean, I believe we can't discuss all of it. We can't exhaust.
I believe are the pertinent ones. And we have heard a couple of times about TUC here in Ghana. What exactly is the role of TUC? What can they do? What can they not do? What are their limitations when it comes to the employment relationship, Mr. Emisa?
Well, when you look at TUC, is the Trade Union Congress, right? Basically, they represent employees where they don't seem to have a voice. And I am always going for an organization who would do the right thing so that they don't have to go for a representation outside. So I won't say I'm anti-union, but I want the organization to treat the people right such that they don't even have the need to look for outside representation. So TUC is there when you don't have bargaining power, you don't know how to talk, you don't know how to negotiate. So a group of employees come together and then they say, look, represent me. So they go in and then they negotiate so many things. But in Ghana, anytime you hear TUC's involvement, it's all about money, salary, as she was saying. So they are supposed to basically talk about the work, productivity, safety, everything to do about the work. But really, the focus is on the money. So TUC comes in because when you leave the employees alone, management sometimes believe they have the upper hand. Employees say something, they will not take it. But TUC has been able to organize a large group of the employees. So they come and say, we are negotiating on behalf of this group of employees. And then when the employer doesn't budge, TUC can call the people and say, look, let's go on strike, let's hold on. And then they can put pressure. So I think their existence is good for the employment, but I think I also want employers to do things that will not invite the TUC into their business.
Okay, Mr. Musa, is it possible for an employee or the employees of a particular organization to not be part of the TUC?
By law, you have the right to join.
Okay.
So if one or two or more employees say we want to form a union and get a representation, by law they have the right to do so. But what I'm saying is, why would they want that representation? They want that because you are not paying them well, you are not providing a training for them, you are not providing PPE, the environment they are working is not good. That is why they go and look for representation. So I am looking for putting the onus on the employer that do it right so that the employees will not have the need to go and seek help.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So talking about the role of TUC or the roles of TUC, the same as I mentioned, safety in the workplace. More than once, I've heard people talking about occupational hazard and safety. Can you delve a little bit into it for us, Dr. Gashon?
Yeah, thank you very much. Occupational health and safety belongs to the region of science that forecasts, which means you have to look at the hazard that will be affecting you before you can actually arrest it. When you want to talk about occupational health safety, forecasting is important. Then we have recognition. The people you are working with, you need to recognize them, that they are putting their people, you need to praise them, you need to, motivate them. Then you also have to look at what we call risk assessment. The hazard causes a lot of risks because of the people are exposed to the hazard. And when you look at risks, it means that the exposure of the people to the work you are giving them and the hazard affecting them, the work will be risky, like you're on height. If you are climbing high to do any work, you need to put your helmet because there are risks of falling. And this occupational health and safety affects even communities. That's why we have EP and environment. It goes from the factory to the nearest community. So when it goes to the community, we have environmental aspect. That's we have the EPA. But factory inspectory, we look at occupational health and safety hazards and safety hazards. When you talk about health hazards, we have a noise, which can affect the hearing impairment of workers. We have also noise that is a hazard, that is noise. We measure those hazards for the worker. But the worker actually is interested in salary than occupational health and safety. Why? Because something that you cannot see the effect immediately, you are not going to feel that you need that more than your salary. But safety actually is an investment for the organization. If the organization invests in health and safety, at the long run, you reap the results by improving your productivity. Because most workers' morals go down when there's injury. Some even mention that some of the companies do rituals because any time you have to get accident, they have that belief that accident is normal to happen, but you have to prevent it. So factory inspection, what we do actually, we prevent the accident from happening. We don't look at health where you go to hospital. We do the forecasting that this is going to happen. Like have a weather, it's going to rain. You can see that it's coming. So you can see the hazard before you get the accident. So normally we record near misses. When you have a near miss, normally everybody talks about accident, but you have to look at near miss before accident because there are conditions in the workplace that are not safe. And sometimes you slip and you don't have accident. But if you neglect those near misses, it means you are prone for an accident. And a lot of near misses culminate into one fatal accident. So if you hear a fatal accident organized, it means there are a lot of near misses that are not taken care of. So it's important that we recognize near misses and take care of them, then we prevent accidents in the organization.
Wow. That is very insightful. And forecasting dangers, forecasting hazards. We've also realized in the last 10 years how our climate is changing and how it is affecting our daily life. So I would want to know, what is your take on climate change and its impacts on health and safety when we go to the organizational setting?
Normally, climate change is supposed to be arrested by every country now. Because GDP, you cannot have a policy that you are going to increase GDP or become wealthy without looking at the climate change. So thank God our new president have got somebody to take care of the climate change stories. When there is climate change, there is increase in temperature. So long as there's increase in temperature, our body temperature works at 37 degrees for metabolism. If the temperature is high, then you are having a lot of sicknesses in the environment. And if workers are sick, they cannot improve productivity. Then climate change also affects the atmosphere, the ozone, because the ozone, there's photochemical and oxidative reaction of ozone, that's carbon monoxide. So this ozone makes sure that we get UV light radiation directly on us. And UV can kill your cells, can give you a lot of cancerogenic situation, you can have cancer. So workers' impact on climate change, on health and safety is unequivocal, because if you don't attack climate change, food supply will be shortage, there will be drought, there will be rise in sea levels. Fishing, you not get a lot of fishes. Even we talk about eutrophication, which means that the waste we pour, dump in the water bodies, take oxygen from the water bodies. So we see the fishes dying. That's eutrophication. So we need not to dump things in the water bodies. And climate change has exacerbated it, because climate change will increase the sea levels, and there will be coastal erosion. If you look at Kita and other sides, because of climate, there will be all the communities in the fishing area that are fishing may not be there for some time. So we need to arrest climate change, and we need to look at also forest events, because we get a lot of built environments. The timber for roofing, we get it for the forest. If there is bushfires and the forest is being destroyed, how are you going to get a built environment, the wood and those things to build houses? So we need to arrest climate change by making sure that we have education, sensitization for the workers, and make sure that all the increase in temperature they are feeling is due to climate change. So there must be arrest of climate change. One, we have to get carbon sinks. We have to reforestate so that all the carbon in the atmosphere, we get carbon pollutants coming to the atmosphere because of what? Burning, heating, and all that things that we do. People burn rubber bag, dioxin, there are a lot of pollutants. And if we don't take care, we may be having agriculture, but we're not getting food supply. There'll be shortage of food. So we have to arrest climate change. And in work environment, sometimes because of increase in temperature, workers do not take the work serious, because there are a lot of zoonotic diseases, vector-borne diseases, and it affects their health. And if diseases are in the workplace, it means that the workers will go for daily medical check, there will be absenteeism, and it affects productivity.
Okay. And then there's the Workmen's Compensation Act that is supposed to govern occupational hazard, if I am right. What are some of the relevant information in this act that can help us stay abreast with practices we must do to be productive at the workplace?
Actually, with the workman compensation, government is so good that when there is, we factory inspector arrest this injury. Our aim is to make sure that government do not pay and the company do not pay workman compensation, because if health and safety is at a higher rate, you don't have enough accidents. But in case there is a slip, it means that government will pay compensation when we report that to the labor department. And the compensations are paid depending on the type of calculation they do at the labor department. So workman compensation is there for every worker that is working that you are injured, and you need to report it to the labor department where you get the compensation. But the most important thing is that they must investigate the accident and know the causes, the root causes of the accident. And then government will not lose a lot of money paying compensation. So compensation paying is not the important part, but prevention is the important part of health and safety and labor relation.
So in wanting to prevent these hazardous events or occurrences, what are some practices you would recommend that we take seriously at the workplace for our safety?
Now, if you are working and you have to do risk assessments, it's just like you want to marry, you have to go to counseling. You have to understand that the work you are doing, some are high risk and some are low risk. And the key is training. You need to train the worker to make sure that the high risk occurrences, like somebody working at height on a roof, or maybe electrical engineer climbing poles, you need to have harness. So high risk works, we have to use permits to work. There is a technique that we say you have to permit the worker signed knowing that you've taken the remedial risks from the work. So if the worker goes there, you will not be injured. If you don't issue permit to the worker and the worker climbs the electric pole and falls, it's an offense. And sometimes in high voltage areas, we have to use what we call lockout, tag out. You must make sure you remove the hazard from there before the worker goes to work. You cannot see a worker and say, I employed you without training. The worker might not be able to do that particular job. It's a high risk job. So we do risk assessment and look the high risk and the low risk area. You do risk ranking. When you do all that, you find out that when you are giving the job to the worker, it measures the worker's capability. But in some cases, the workers just come and do any sort of job, and at the end of it, they get injured because that particular work they are doing, they have not done job analysis to chronically to know which type of job suit that worker. For example, when they are going to confined places like a tank to go, there is shortage of oxygen. Asphyxiation is there, and you must supply the worker of oxygen. Those who go deep confined space like mining and those things, there is loss of oxygen, so you need to help them. And you need to check whether there is attendance. If there is any accident, they can give emergency response. So if the worker enters a confined space and with that attendance is an offense, so it means we have to look at permit regimes for high risk workers, the logger tag out for high voltage areas. Then finally, you must make sure that they have safe systems of work. When you say safe systems of work, it means that you are doing the work in a safe manner. But most workers do the work in an unsafe manner because they have attitude problem, they have behavioral problem, and they have conditioning problem. So it means that you, the occupier, must make sure you take them through health and safety education, you give them induction, toolbox talks every day, making sure that they understand what they are going to do. So if you have the permit regime for high risk, excellent. But if you don't have permitting regime, then it means that you are doing the work in unfriendly and unsafe manner. Safe protocols are not adhered to. Standard operating procedures are not adhered to. That's detrimental for accidents.
Wow. I hope if you are an employee here, you should have learned a lot today. And if you are seeing that these things are missing in your organization, quickly ask for help from your employer, because now we know how to stay safe in our organization. When we started, there was this question about termination and recruitment. What exactly is unfair termination, and what are the remedies to it if one should experience it?
Okay, so I believe that in the labor law lays out what fair termination is. First of all, the premise which Ms. Emisa gave from the beginning, the employer has the right to hire and fire. So it is not wrong to terminate. However, the law lays out certain guidelines for termination to be called fair or unfair. Okay, so for it to be fair, the law prescribes what exactly you need to do, or what should warrant a fair termination. There should be proven misconduct. There should be, evidence that the person cannot perform what you actually hired them to do. Okay, there should be maybe the person is restricted by law from doing something, so from doing the work. So based on that, you can terminate based on that. So that is fair. However, it becomes unfair when maybe the person is being terminated based on discriminatory grounds, based on, for instance, let's say somebody decides to join a union or form a union, like you said, two or more employees can decide to form or join a union. Okay, it is their right. The law gives them that right. So when an employer decides to punish the employee for deciding or wanting to join or form a union, and so based on that you terminate, that is unfair termination. Okay, if you terminate because somebody is pregnant, that is unfair. You terminate because maybe somebody spoke up about something that is unfair that's going on in the organization, that is also unfair termination. A termination is okay, is allowed if it's based on redundancy. Maybe the institution is going through some, something, and so has to shut down. It is allowed. However, in all of these, there are guidelines. Okay, so if those guidelines are not followed, the basis may be. In terms of remedy, I mean, the National Labour Commission is there. So an employee who feels they've been unfairly treated can always go to the NLC to seek redress. Okay, so they can be reinstated, they can be to their role, they can be compensated, or both. Yeah, so those are some of the remedies.
You mentioned that there's a guidelines, or there are guidelines that must be followed for the termination of a contract. I have a friend or a colleague who has been told that you are to stop work. I'm not
Immediately.
Yes. Was that the right procedure that must have been followed for this termination of contract?
Okay, so the law requires that for every termination, you give notice. Okay, so there should be notice of termination. The law also allows the employer to set up guidelines or rules through which they can govern their institution and the people who work in there. So that is why companies have policies and procedures, which ideally they're supposed to have, and they're supposed to train their employees on. Now, so first of all, yes, you can terminate, but you need to give notice. And the reasons must be clear, and they must be founded in law. I believe we've spoken about some of the reasons that will make it fair. Okay, some people have what they call summary dismissal, and they have enshrined that in their policy. Okay, so they have different types of termination. So summary dismissal is a form of termination. However, in this case, they don't give notice. They just sack you like your employee. Yes, and they have given, what do you call? They've given situations that can lead to that. Sometimes we call it consequence management. So they have a disciplinary policy, and they've divided the offenses into categories. Some of them are outrageous or grievous conditions, and based on that, they would say that if you go this far, it's a summary dismissal. Okay, so they have those things. Most of the time, you read the policies, you're supposed to sign and agree. And so once you sign, I would say that you are bound. But ideally, every termination, the person must be given notice, or they must be paid in lieu of that notice that you're supposed to give them. So whether summary or not, I believe that whatever is due them, you're supposed to get them. But sometimes the law allows you to set up policies, but the policies are also supposed to be grounded in law. If it is not, it is also null and void. Do you understand? Yeah. So I don't know the details of your friend's situation. I don't know the extent of whatever it was that based on which the person was being asked to go, but you can look into the case. But if the friend feels that they've been unfairly treated, like I said, they can always go to the NLC to seek redress, or to speak to a labor lawyer for advice.
Labor lawyer, indeed. I mean, it's just something small, as usual. You won't take much, or they won't take much. They won't take much. So I have survived termination, I've survived dismissal, I've worked, it's time for retirement. Who can we say is eligible to go on retirement? I mean, at what age do we say a person can go on retirement?
I think generally the law states 60 years you go on retirement. But I think there are some rules to be able to give people some 2 years after that. But generally, at 60 years, you're eligible. Oh no, it's not. Ours is not eligibility for retirement. It's mandatory retirement. Yeah, so at 60 years, you go on retirement unless the company wants to find some way of giving you a contract. And I think within the public sector, they call it a 2-2-1 or something. They can give you 2 years,
2 years, and renewal for the last 2 years.
1 years, and then, yeah. But generally, 60 years, yes. You are going on
then we have
retirement.
the voluntary retirement at 55. When you serve for 15 years, not at least 15 years service, then you can go on 55 for voluntary.
And I think with the mining and some other industry, the mandatory is also 55. Yeah, so, but then I think the voluntary has to do with pension eligibility.
Yes, pension
So
eligibility.
when you have contributed a minimum of 15 years, then you are eligible for full pension. So then you can actually go on retirement.
So talking about pension, how can a pensioner prepare financially for retirement?
You see, prepare financially for retirement has to come with a mindset. And when you look at what organizations do, when the employees turn 58, 56, and then they say we are doing retirement planning for them. And I think at that time, at that age, it's a bit too late. So the recommendation is as soon as employees join the organization, that mindset of that 60 years will hit you one day has to be made clear. But then when you look at the Pensions Act, I think the amendments that they did with this tier 3 and the tier 2 is also helping to get people grounded from day one, because from day one you can be contributing to the tier 2, tier 3. Tier 2 is mandatory anyway. Tier 3 you can be contributing, and that will build your retirement nest. So looking at it from that perspective, I think the law is taking care of it. But the bottom line is monies that are paid to people is nothing to write home about. And also, when you look at, they said, oh, we are taking 16% of your money and putting it to tier 3, right? What a lot of employers are doing is you can see somebody's taking 10,000 cedis home. And then you say, oh, that's good money. But the employer is actually paying them 2,000 and paying them 8,000 as allowances. So all this Provident Fund and the SNIT is paid on the 2,000. So you are working and you are taking 10,000 home, and then you go on retirement and you are taking a fraction. Sorry, you are working and you are taking 10,000 home. Now you go on retirement and you are taking a fraction of 2,000. And a lot of people get a shock of their lives. So when you do this retirement planning, it kind of educates you about this, even in the Social Security, where you yourself can do add-up contribution. And then, of course, a lot of organizations will also bring financial analysts to help you do financial planning. So maybe I make 10,000, you make 5,000. So you look at me and you say, oh, Kojo makes a lot of money. As for me, my money is so small, so I can't do anything with it. But when you go through proper financial planning, you'll be surprised that it can help you, motivate you out of your meager 5,000 or 3,000, be able to put some 200 somewhere on a regular basis in the right vehicles, and then hopefully by the time you turn 60, it becomes a good thing. And then, you know, they also teach you what you can do after 60, because we have a lot of people who are on retirement and they are strong, sharp brains, they have all the experience, the energy, they can work. So what do? Do you go and sit at home when you are retired? Maybe you start thinking about what you do with your life post-retirement. And I think the last thing is, somebody says, you save all this money for retirement, and retirement, you are not healthy enough. How do you do? So retirement planning comes with, from the day one, how do you take care of your health so that at 60 you'll still be strong if you have saved enough to enjoy it. If you haven't saved enough, you can continue to do some meaningful work.
And then additional, you see, I could just say, oh yeah, Juma, and train could do 55, 54, 52. And sana why you are doing so see the meaning coming in tea. Make sure I see the first you can to her for Brahma retirement that be. So where the 20 years, 25, 30, 35, na se see a we ejuma, ye ejuma ye tu abosumi bia, sha sie, sie ho boa sika na no to ho, chine bi, nka se bi boni beto, na so chine bia semti. Utimi di bi to ho, ebe boa, ebe bo efie for, ebe hin high won so kakra. So realistically, I just gave some of the ages, but realistically, what is the ideal age to start planning for your retirement?
first day of employment. No, but it's true. When you look at the Provident Fund, right, that is really the spirit behind it. Previously, you are doing your SNIT that you are going to get some fraction of the basic when you go. But this is where the law is helping you that you put tax-exempt money. So meaning the money you are going to put in this investment will not be taxed until the money matures. So the law is actually encouraging you, especially the tier 3, it's not mandatory. But then the law says if you are doing it, then we are not going to take tax on it. And I think a lot of organizations too are doing a good stuff on it, meaning they themselves, either you are contributing the whole 60%, because you can contribute 16% of it. Some companies are actually doing that free for you. Some too say you do 10, we do 6. Some have a whole combination of things. But whatever form it takes, you have to do it. If you make 2,000 and I make 20,000, don't look at my 20,000.
I was coming to that.
Out of your 2,000, you still have to enroll and pay.
As young people, as entry-level roles, you started young girl. I came from Kumasi. I'm based in Accra. My Gianna 3,000, 3,500. But so me, you have to pay rent, utility bills, food, transport hasn't come. If I am a church goer, I'm paying my tithes.
Yes. You see, I had this conversation with some guy, right? He says, you've come fresh, okay? When we give you 2,000, I know that money is not sufficient. When we give you 3,000, I know it's not sufficient. When we give you 5,000, I know it's not sufficient. However you want to look at it, at the end of the day, that 10% of the 2,000, which is 200 cedis, will not kill you. You can survive. I think it has to be a mindset, right? Because the people who don't have this mindset, when you move their salaries from 2,000 to 3,000, they still say the money is too small. So there's no right time to save than the first day of work. And this one, the employers are helping. So if the employers are not doing all the whatever percentages, then you have to, like when you go to the banks, right? Some of the banks, we are talking about retirement planning. You are going to have children, you are going to get married. Some of the banks have products. Some of them, they said educational, university fee payment and all of that. Let's say you haven't had a kid. If you had a kid, you have 18 years before they go to university. Some of the banks are taking as little as 30 cedis a month. 30 cedis a month doesn't look anything, but for 18 years, you'll be surprised. You pay for your children's university and all of that. Okay, and in Ghana too, our fathers, they used to save money, right, to build homes.
Yeah.
But these days, the banks are offering mortgages. And I think part of the mindset, like when you live in the Western world, right, they'll go to some lower neighborhood, take some one-bedroom apartment that is affordable, and take that, and you build equity, right? So when your income level goes up, then you can either sell that or use it as investment and then go and buy a slightly bigger one until you become that big person that you want to go to your Trasaco place. But Ghana, we are all waiting for that big money to go and live in Trasaco. And by the time we realize that we cannot be in Trasaco, then being in whatever place, we can't even afford that one. So for me, I think the onus lies on the individual. However, the employer can help by educating people from day one about the need to focus on your retirement today.
Okay. All right. So the entry-level rules, we will change our attitude and our mindsets now. You try and do the 30
cities a month. You'll be surprised.
Little drops of water.
Yes.
In our current country and how investments, so what are, apart from the pension and paying the state, what are some other investments, especially for, I am focused on the young people because I mean, we are peers and we talk, and then most of us, apart from complaining that the money is not much to even save from, we look at what are the secure financial investments we can do, apart from paying for the pensions and the other things. What other secure investments can we do at our young ages Now that we have the strength to be working hard, how is it? Because it looks like our country, sometime back it was this bank, and now the haircuts, and now we are flying and swimming all over things. And so what help can we get?
If you speak to investment advisors, they would look at you and assess you and your risk appetite. Okay. And most of the time, one thing I've heard them say several times is if you are young, you have a lot of time ahead of you. Mind you, you're 25, you've just started, you're planning towards retirement at 60. So you have a long a length of time. So apart from the T-bills, the immediate ones, the closer ones you can look at, you can also consider long-term investment. You can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, okay, and then you can also invest in business. Do you understand? Yeah. Sometimes you can partner with somebody, and I mean, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Okay, that is also something we need to take note of. But if you are young, the good thing is that you have a lot of time on your hands to experiment, and then something good will definitely. I have come to realize that once you start something, it grows. Okay. It will grow, no matter how, if it goes up and down, definitely it would grow. So we need to teach our young people, even from school, and sometimes that's the problem I have with our educational system. We need to teach them even from school, like he said, that mindset of, saving, investing in long-term instruments, investing in business. Try something with your hands. That little thing that you are earning, start something, it would grow. Do you understand? Those who are able to make it in life, who, trust me, they are not employees. That's another discussion, I know. But we need to, they are not employees. It's good to be an employee, but it's good to have an entrepreneurial mindset. Own something, be a part of something. If you can't own it entirely, be a part of something. And these days, some employers are helping. Sometimes they provide these equity, some people call it share options, share plans, giving you the opportunity to own parts of the businesses that you are working for, the companies that you are working for. So I think that that's what we need to instill in our children who are growing and those who are in school, and even your peers. When you get the opportunity, tell them, look, don't just wait for somebody to employ you. Try doing something with your hands. The little you earn on a monthly basis, gather them together and start something, sell something, do something extra in addition to what you are earning, and it would grow.
Okay. It will grow. We start now. We are doing it now. We are not waiting to get to that point. Dr. Gershon, a viewer just sends in a question that to find yourself in an organization that is not working with these occupational hazard safety rules, what is the process one can follow? I mean, apart from going to your employer to let them know, say, please, I've realized as an organization that deals with mining, we are supposed to have A, B, and C, but we don't. Apart from using that route, what other processes can one go through to ensure that their organization or their work setting is safe enough for what they do?
Normally, thank you. Normally, most organizations, you have a safety policy, safety, health, quality policy. And that policy is binding on all employers. That now ILO makes it a fundamental right for all workplaces to adhere to health and safety. We don't need to conventions it's a fundamental right. So you just go to your manager, discuss about your health, not about only your salary. HR should lead the discussion, because most often they talk about salaries, workers talk about salary, not safety, unless there's accident. But without safety, you are not assured of coming home with your pension. You might end up with occupational disease or any injury, and you cannot bring your body back to work to continue. So occupiers, employers should come together and talk about how workers can go pension without accident. So they need to do pre-medical survey for the employees and then post-medical survey. Pre-medical survey means that you are being recruited HRs. You make sure you know the baseline of their sicknesses. When they are working and getting to pension, they also know to do the post. Then they measure. Then they have to know whether they are going home with their savings to go and treat other diseases or they are safe. So if they do those checks, they might be aware that they have a lot of hazard in the environment. Now, an employee, we have to, Factory Inspector is trying to make the curriculum, try to have safety education in the basic curriculum. Because we found out people finish university, lawyers come out and they don't even understand the hazard in their environment. If you go to the offices, people are using photocopy machines, people are using printers, they are emitting carbon. And you know what carbon can do to you? Your air quality is poor, you might get cancer. And those machines are machines that you are using, and there's dust, particulate matter, coming on from that. And if you inhale those dust, you may have lung cancer. There are a lot of things. So offices, workplaces must observe a very good air quality, because the air you are breathing is from the plant, oxygen. And you are also giving out carbon dioxide. In the work environment, carbon dioxide can affect global warming and those things. So we need to check the carbon emissions. So workers need to discuss safety, part of their bargaining certificate for salaries. They need to discuss this. And it's high time now. ILO have made it compulsory, a fundamental pillar. So when you start work, you must demand from your occupier health and safety education and then training, so that you can go home safely without having any issue with your medicals.
Okay.
Yeah, can I add a bit
Yes,
to
you
that?
can.
See the whole safety thing, right? Everybody, the job that you are taking, you need to do some assessment yourself and know the hazards that come with the job. So like here, the job that you are doing right now, what can happen right now to us? Maybe some fire outbreak. When there's a fire outbreak, what do? Do we jump, or there's an exit that we can go out safely? So I think from what he's saying, you yourself have to assess. And that safe condition has to be provided by the employer. Where the employer has not provided, you have the right to report to them. You understand? But then obviously you start by discussing that we don't have a safe condition. And then there's the Safe Act, meaning how you yourself behave to create that problem. Even that, the employer has a responsibility to train you on acting safely. So where you are not having that, you can also do. So the whole OSHA system puts a big onus on the employer to make sure there's a safe condition and
The
a safe
workplace.
act. Then it gives you the powers. And we were talking about wrongful termination. If you go and report that there's no fire exits, they cannot terminate you based on that. Are you getting it?
Yes.
So every employee should be educated to understand their rights at the workplace. Because you have to go in with 10 fingers and leave with 10 fingers.
And the safety policy is signed by the manager, pasted, that I will abide all the safety protocols and regulations of this organization. I will take part, and the manager signs. That is abiding on. So you cannot blame the employee that is not observing safety. You have the responsibility to make sure that the place is safe. So for factories where you can come and report if the employer is not abiding by safety regulations, then we can take it up.
Okay, we have just 1 minute, so I'll take your final words. Starting with Madam Opinibaini, and then Mr. Emisa, and then Dr. Gashon, and we'll be done.
Okay, so I think that the employment relationship is one that we cannot do without. Okay, so we need to understand each other. For instance, we're just talking about safety, and the onus is on the employer. There's a catch there in the law also. If the employer does all they need to do, train you all they need to do, and because of an attitude problem, because of being recalcitrant, you decide not to use or abide by the safety protocols put in place that you've been trained on, when there is an issue, you cannot hold the employer liable. So it's both ways. We need to agree to disagree. We need to we need to help each other. Do you understand? So that's what I would part ways with that. Both the employer and employee we need each other, and so we need to work together. Our young ones should also have a mindset of investment, and you know, they should start. We should all start planning towards retirement when we enter employment, because we can't depend on SNIT.
Keyword, we can't depend on SNIT. Mr. Evisa, your final words.
Yes, meaning the employment relationship, I think the organization tends to benefit more if they do all the right things. They create a safe environment, they are paying people, they are motivating people, they are training, helping you to plan for your future, doing everything. Because if your employer is doing all of this, you keep saying, oh, as for my employer, from day one, we are investing, we are training this, oh, the environment is nice. It motivates you and you actually want to keep working there and you kill yourself. So I always put the onus on the employer to do right by the employee so that the employee feels motivated to give out their best.
Okay, Dr. Gasha?
Yeah, thank you. For the employers, they should make sure that safety is an investment and they will benefit with higher productivity. And then the employees should observe ABC theory of safety, where A is their behavior, A is their attitude, B is their behavior, and C is the condition. Means that if you are not putting safety PPs, either they give you positive reinforcement or negative, they punish you for that. And then if you are using the PP, they should be able to motivate you. The employees should do that. They should balance the two. And all employees, their behavior and their attitude to change towards safety. And for that, there will be productivity in the organization and harmonic situation there. Thank you.
Harmonic situation, Dr. Garshan. Thank you to our guests. And I have learned a lot. I do not know about you, but I hope you have also taken a thing or two from today's episode. We are starting new episodes. This is our season 5. And so we are starting with business matters for season 5, and we'll be delving into auditing, procurement, tax compliance, IT. I don't think you would want to miss this, especially coming from the legal perspectives. It is going to help you who is an employee and you who plans to be an employer one day. And definitely it's going to be a good time. We are going to have our main host, Anita Delais-Dankwa, taking us through that, and so you should join us same time next week at 6:30 p.m. on Hope Channel. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.